Didier, thank you everyone for joining us. Welcome. I am Clara Camarasa, as Didier mentioned. I'm an energy efficiency policy analyst at the International Energy Agency, and it is a pleasure to be today with you talking about such an important topic as multiple benefits of energy efficiency is. In my presentation, I will very briefly go through the history of the IEA in terms of this topic and how it has supported or has been a key player in making sure that this is in creating the groundwork to make sure that this is a relevant topic that we continue to work on, including, of course, the MICATool that we'll be delving into in a few minutes as well. So, starting with multiple benefits of energy efficiency publication, as many of you in the energy efficiency space know, the traditional focus of energy efficiency in energy saving as the main goal of energy efficiency policy has sometimes, at least, led to kind of an underestimation of the full value of energy efficiency in both local, national, and global economies. But as many of us know here in the webinar, at least, energy efficiency can bring multiple benefits, such as enhancing sustainability, productivity, and also promoting very important environmental, social, and economic goals that many countries are seeking to achieve. By identifying and quantifying a broader range of multiple benefits to energy efficiency, there's not only the potential of course, better understanding the impact of our actions, but as well motivating a higher uptake of these energy efficiency measures in the different markets. Within the energy efficiency division at the IEA, the one I work in, we work with policymakers and other stakeholders with a clear mission to make sure that we scale up energy efficiency action, not only to make sure that we save energy, but also to make sure that we mitigate climate change while delivering on environmental and social benefits. And in line with this mission, some years ago in 2015, we developed what is now one of our flagship publications on multiple benefits, was called Capturing Multiple Benefits of Energy Efficiency, which you have here in the screen as the cover. It was our first major publication on this topic, and the aim at the time was twofold. It still is. The first was to build knowledge of the multiple benefits of energy efficiency. And the second was to demonstrate to policymakers and other decision makers or stakeholders that we could use existing, but also we could develop new tools, as in the case of the MICATool, to measure and maximize the benefits that they were seeking to have with their policy actions. Now, something that we did not anticipate at the time, yet we're very happy to see that is happening, is that it also contributed to creating a community which continues to highlight the importance of the subject, but also to expand the body of knowledge, to expand the understanding and tools, like again, the MICATool in this space. Some of the multiple benefits on energy efficiency that we identified in this report, which we continue to work on today, are energy security, energy prices, energy access, health and well-being, improved air quality, public budgets, as well as many other economic and benefits, such as job creation, for instance. Now, one of our most recent publications on multiple benefits is the one I'm presenting in this slide, which is boosting energy efficiency, delivering affordability, security, and jobs in Latin America. In this report, we look at energy efficiency and demand management policies and programs in Latin America. We did this in consultation with officials and stakeholders in the different countries. We also had a number of experts, both locally and internationally, to make sure that we had the best understanding on of the region. This included, for instance, the Inter-American Development Bank of the region, which also has a very good understanding of the economic side, for instance, of these benefits. And we presented this evidence in a very big workshop with different stakeholders, where everyone agreed that these were indeed the different benefits of having implemented all these energy efficiency policies and programs. Some of the evidence that these efforts kind of highlight were the improving living standards, the public budgets, energy security, and employment, for instance. We showcase evidence of Argentina, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Mexico, and Panama, as I present in this slide, where we prove that it has increased the improved the affordability and access to energy services, especially for low-income households, which is something that for that region is particularly critical. We've also had energy savings of public budgets, both municipal and on a national level. That is the case, for instance, of energy efficiency measures in buildings. And also, not least important, is related to jobs. So not only creating the jobs of today, but also careers of the future, making sure that the skill sets of the different fields are really improved in a consistent manner. In line with these efforts, we also developed a tool where we shared with the Brazilian stakeholders in order for the different building managers of the municipal buildings could use to identify the multiple benefits of the energy efficiency measures in buildings. And in order to do that, we also created some training for the different stakeholders, etc. So these are something that we continue to build, we continue to grow, and we continue to believe in the importance of it. Now, social and economic impacts are present across our work. It's not only these two publications that I just presented, but in the interest of time, I have included some of these examples in the slide. You would also have in the slide deck links to the different resources you can find within the IEA. But in the interest of time, I would like to highlight an initiative that we lead within the Energy Efficiency Division, which is the People-Centered Clean Energy Transition Program. This program supports governments to ensure that the clean energy transition is truly just, truly inclusive, and it takes into consideration aspects like social inclusion, the focus on skills, on quality skills, as I mentioned earlier, the fact that the jobs are decent and equal across genders, worker protection, for instance, as well as social and economic development for all the different social segments. And the reason why we're so engaged in this initiative is that we believe that putting people in the center of clean energy transition and ensuring the inclusivity of all the different stakeholders is the only way that we can ensure a successful, sustainable, and effective policy implementation, while at the same time, of course, making sure that the energy and climate policies are really achieved. So as you can see, the IEA has laid the ground of multiple benefits for energy efficiency. It has built and continues to build, and to do so, build a knowledge basis. It has created a kind of theoretical base, which has attracted many efforts in the field, including publications, including tools, including other initiatives. And one of the main objectives when doing so, as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, is to demonstrate how policymakers can really, and other stakeholders related to policymaking, of course, can develop tools and measure and maximize all of the benefits of energy efficiency actions, which are indeed many. And it's particularly thinking of this objective that we very much support the MICATool. We support the fact that they have created such a comprehensive critical tool that helps to operationalize all of the multiple benefits in policy design and implementation. We're happy to see that this comprehensive approach is integrated in the policy making, ensuring that all these benefits are not lost or disregarded. They are ripped off the policy action by this creating the free, easy to use, scientifically sound online tool. And we're sure that with this comprehensive tool will be able to support also the national and local level developments in the European Union when it comes to advancing the climate change program, when it comes to advancing a just clean energy transition, and when it comes to addressing all the different needs and challenges of the different stakeholders that are present in the different areas of the European Union. And having said this, I'll hand over to you, to Giulia, I believe, and I'll thank you all for your attention and look forward to the Q&A session. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Clara. I'll try sharing my screen now, so let me know if you can see it now, please.
Yes, we can, Giulia. It's perfect.
Thank you, Diederik. Thank you very much. So welcome to everybody also from my side. As Diederik said before, my name is Giulia Pizzini. I'm a senior expert at IEECP. And today I would like to speak to you about how multiple benefits or multiple impacts are becoming more and more important also in the energy and climate policy area. And also together with my colleagues, Wolfgang and Niklas, I would like to give you an overview of how the MICATool was developed together with the different policymakers at different governance level, and show you how the tool can support the different levels, and most importantly, the national and the local one. So we heard from Clara the history of the concept and how it evolved over the years. However, it's only recently that the concept of wider benefits or multiple benefits has entered the policy discussion. And what you can see now on the screen is actually Article 3 of the recast of the Energy Efficiency Directive, which should be finally approved in July this year. This article refers to the energy efficiency first principle and pushes member states to ensure its application in new policymaking. But in its third point, it goes beyond that, and it requires member states to take into account the wider benefits that we are talking about, also when carrying out their cost-benefit analysis, especially from a societal perspective. It also asks member states to include such calculations into their reporting procedures in accordance with the governance regulation. And to go beyond Europe and link back to what Clara was saying and her institution, multiple benefits are more and more recognized also globally. And for example, here you can see a picture of the recent conference of the IEA held in Versailles last June, where 45 governments endorsed the goal of doubling energy efficiency progress by 2030. And even here in the declaration, you can see how they highlighted the positive impacts that this would create beyond energy savings and cost savings. And highlighting the wider impacts and shifting the narrative, creating more arguments for strengthening the energy efficiency targets is exactly what the MICATool can offer. So the MICATool can, in fact, quantify and monetize water benefits, allowing for cost-benefit analysis and impact assessments. Its main focus is on practical usability and ease of handling. And as Wolfgang will better explain later, the MICATool allows you, just by inputting energy savings, and of course other data in case you have them, to calculate through widely used scenarios such as primes or the NECP models that member states have used to calculate then multiple impacts that can derive from those savings. Of course, the tool is not developed as an alternative to more comprehensive model-based scenarios, but rather as a complement to these. And how can the tool be used at national level? So as I already said, it can be used to support member states in their calculations for Article 3 of the Energy Efficiency Directive, so taking into account these wider benefits in their CBAs and IAs. But however, it can also be used for the update and the reporting on the NECPs. As you know, the draft should have been submitted, the updated draft of the NECPs should have been submitted last week. We know not all member states did that. But the final updated NECPs should be submitted 1 year from now. And as you can see below, there's an extract from the Italian NECP, and section 5.2 of these documents really points on the quantification, and you can read, it says, to the extent feasible, of other wider impacts of energy efficiency measures, and more generally of energy related measures. Then, of course, the tool can also be used for other uses, for example, EU taxonomy, or for, of course, research purposes. And in order to make it as useful as possible, not only for the national level, but also for the local level and for the European level, the MICAT team developed a strategy or process to involve policymakers not only now when the tool is ready, but throughout its development, through a 3-step methodology that you can see here on the right of the slide. So we had 3 meetings with the 3 governance levels. In the first meeting, we we asked their expectations, so policymakers' expectations on the tool, and we explained how we intended to build it. In the second meeting, we showed a mock-up, a draft version of the tool. We discussed on the architecture of the different indicators and gathered more feedback. And in the third meeting, which is at the moment, we are at the moment having these meetings, we are again, we are showing the results, some results from the tool that you will see now presented from Wolfgang. And we are also offering the short trainings of the tool, which will also be available to the wider public later on after the summer. So in case you're interested, keep an eye on the MICATool website. And this is very important because, as I said, we have larger target group, a wide range of use cases. So for us, it was important to really tailor the tool to the needs of its future users. To go more in depth on the national level, we had 3 pilot member states that followed us in the development of the tool, which are Germany, Italy, and Poland. For the 3 member states, we had a national team that supported us. So for Germany, it was together with Fraunhofer, Prognos. For Italy, it was RSC, and for Poland, WISE Europa. And as you can see from the participants list, we tried to really involve those who will need to use the tool or that could best use the tool in the future. So of course, the ministries, but also the national agencies, and also other participants such as academia, industry associations, and the finance sector. And you can see below the dates of these webinars, of these workshops, sorry. And here you can see some pictures just to give you an idea of how these workshops were carried out, of the Italian one that was held last year in October. And finally, very, very shortly, for the sake of time, I just wanted to show you practically what it was to collect member states and the European Commission's interest on the different indicators. So we have 3 families of indicators, as you know by now: the economic indicators, the social indicators, and the environmental indicators. And you can see here the interest that Italy, Germany, Poland, and the Commission showed. This was before the war in Ukraine. For some of the indicators, so you can see that energy security is not as high as it should be or would be now if we asked again, but just to give you an idea of how we collected also their interest. And this is the same for the social indicators and the environmental indicators. And I think with this overview of the national level, I would like to give the floor to my colleague Wolfgang, who can show you a more technical application of the tool. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Giulia. I hope you can hear me. I'm not sure.
Yes, we can.
You can already see me, but keep the presentation for the moment, because I will switch afterwards to my screen after the next 2-3 slides. So sorry for having been slightly late at the beginning. My name is Wolfgang Eichhammer. I'm working at the Fraunhofer Institute for Systems and Innovation Research in Energy Markets and Energy Policy, also at Utrecht University. And I will build upon what Giulia just has said about the functioning or the use of the MICAT tool. We used it for the 3 different countries, and essentially there are 2 different ways, or if you wish, to two different ways, which are reflected here in this matrix, how to enter the tool. And in a few moments, we will have a direct look at the website with, at the draft website with the tool. Essentially, you can enter in terms of scenarios. That is the upper part of the circle that you see in the middle. Either scenarios you can design actually for the future. In principle, you can also design, in quotation marks, scenario for the past by comparing actual developments, for example, with scenarios that are called without measure scenarios, for example, to evaluate the impacts of a set of measures that has been initiated some 15, 20 years ago. That it would also be possible, but in many cases, there will be the focus on future scenarios. While on the lower part, you see the individual measures evaluation, and this can be either linked to the past or to the future development. Giulia, please the next slide here. Just to recall, I think some of you have participated in the first webinars. The tool is essentially linked to energy savings that occur in the scenarios or in different measures, and multiple impacts are derived from these savings with a number of technical parameters. And these technical parameters, they depend on the country, they depend on the sector, they depend on the set of technologies that are behind the savings. And for the countries that were mentioned, the three countries that we mentioned, we were starting from scenarios, notably NECP scenarios mentioned by Giulia, which we translated to different technologies, and which were then on which we then calculated the multiple impacts. I will show you a very short version of that on foot. But in practice, we put the information derived from the scenario in a kind of input sheet, which we then uploaded to the tool in order to the multiple impact calculation. But I would like to show you a very simplified version how to calculate the multiple impacts. Next slide, please. This is an example where we did calculations at the European Union level, and you see here some of these multiple impacts, like the import dependency, which today is a very important parameter. Upper right, the premature deaths, or on the left-hand side, you see the evolution of the savings over time, and also the sectoral savings, which were the basis, as I just mentioned, to calculate those indicators. And this is an exemplary result at the European Union level, and in a similar way. Giulia, please, the next slide. Here, this is an example from Poland, where you see on the right-hand side, in particular, a list of monetized impacts. Just recall that the indicators are provided in physical terms, so avoided number of deaths or health impacts and so on. But there is also an effort made as far as possible to monetize those impacts. And here you see a summary of those monetized impacts in the three large fields: environmental, social, and economic impacts for these specific scenarios, which are behind here. With that, I would like to move on to the tool. I think you got insight into the methodology for these three sectors in the previous webinars. In case you have participated, behind each of the indicators, there is a methodology where we had a lot of discussion. There are data collection behind. There are simplifications in some cases behind, which we documented also in fact sheets, and which certainly are also subject to further discussions. Now I will try to, in the sake of time, to transmit my screen, and I hope it will work here. Okay. Let me know in case you see my screen.
Yeah, we can see it, Wolfgang. It's all working.
Yeah. Okay. Great. So here you see the entrance screen of MICAT, and you see these 4 quadrants here, which allow to enter, which I just showed to you. And essentially, in the lower part here, you see the possibility to evaluate individual measures, and in the upper part, the possibilities to evaluate full sets of a scenario. But essentially, the approach is very similar, because frequently these scenarios are decomposed into different types of measures, for example, in sectors like industry, transport, and so on. I would like to enter with you here quickly into these scenario settings, and you get here typically this insight here, or this this web page here. You get at the in the upper part a larger number of explanations on the tool. You get instructions how to proceed, which you can have a look at. You see here, for example, some decomposition in the case of a residential renovation scheme into different types of technologies, notably building envelopes, heating, fuel switch, or electric appliances, for example. And this is exactly the decomposition which occurs in the tool and which has to be parameterized. In the sake of time, I cannot show all of these explanations, but the tool will soon be available for playing around. So just to show you very quickly how now this is on foot, explained on foot. I will choose a single country here, but in practice, this will be done through uploading a number of data. So, for example, we did the investigation on Germany, and I very simply, in a simplified manner, I can input a lot of information, but I choose the average residential sector, and I choose a measure which is or a scenario which has a strong focus on the building envelope. And you can then, let's say, I assume a certain number of savings for Germany in 2030 and before. I said this is a very simplified exercise, and once I have entered those savings, I'm able to calculate a number of these indicators, and below you get here the sections with the results. I will simply here expand a bit the tool here. So you get here the 3 categories: social, economic, and ecologic, and you are able then to follow up different types of indicators, like here, for example, avoided premature mortality, avoided lost working days, and so on. I don't have time to go into these results here, but in any case, you also have the possibility to look at the values behind the euro values, the monetization as far as possible. There's also a lot of explanation how this is done. And also you can go to an aggregate view where you can see the contribution in value terms to the different benefits. And in that case, you see there's a lot of investment in the building sector. So the contribution to gross domestic product is a large piece here, but you also have from other impacts some quantification. With that, I stop here because we still are not at the end, and would hand over to Niklas for the local level. I'm sorry for having taken a little bit of time.
Perfect. Thank you, Wolfgang. And I think it's good that you took some time. It's complex. Giulia, if I may ask you to share our slides again, that would be great. Perfect. Thanks. Yeah, then also hello from my side. I'm Niklas. I work for IEECP. We're a European city network, as was already introduced in the beginning. And so our role in the MICAT project was basically then also to take this tool to the local level. And this was maybe the most experimental part of the project, so to say, because working with such tools at the EU and national level is an established practice, so to say, but at the local level, this is rather novel. And a starting point, well, not a starting point, actually, the starting point for us was to find cities who are interested, and we arrived at 3 cities. One in Tartu is Tartu in Estonia, one is Vitoria-Gasteiz in northern Spain, and the other one was the municipality of Calvia on the island of Mallorca in Spain. So also a good mix of different regions and sizes of city, let's say. Halfway through the first year, I think, after the first year of the project, there was the revision of the Energy Efficiency Directive, and this is what we're looking at here right now. And I think that actually gave quite a nice push also for the idea of the project to develop this tool to be used and useful at the local level. Because if you look into the Energy Efficiency Directive, you see a few mentions of the local level, actually, and I highlighted try to highlight that here on the slide. You see in recital 14, for example, it says, in order to have an impact, the energy efficiency first principle needs to be consistently applied by national, regional, local, and sectoral decision makers. So here the local level is really addressed directly. And then in Articles 5, 3, 4, and 5 below, you also see again that the local authorities are mentioned as an actor. Consulting relevant stakeholders is suggested for the application of the energy efficiency first principle. And this was also one of the ideas for us working with cities, that this tool should enable better data or fact-based, let's say, dialogue between municipal authorities and stakeholders to make decisions on energy mitigation and adaptation measures. And also below, I think what's nice also for the project context of talking about multiple impacts, you also see, of course, that in Article 5.4, there's the reference to the wider benefits beyond energy savings. Maybe I'll leave it with that, but I think this has been also a novel development, that the local authorities are recognized in such legislation, which you can also see as part of a trend in the EU policy making with programs like the EU Cities Mission to move 100 cities to climate neutrality until 2030. But this is not the topic of today. But so we've seen an increasing attention here, which is positive in general. So if we go to the next slide, I'll just go through a few points. How we work with cities. So here I borrowed some slides from our colleagues in the municipality of Calvia. So it's a relatively small municipality on the island of Mallorca, but it has a lot of tourism and through that also some energy and material consumption footprint. If we go to the next slide, we'll see that here for the city of Calvia, they have a long story of working on sustainability, starting with the local Agenda 21 in the 90s. But then in 2008, you see they joined this covenant of mayors, and this was actually a common thread with all the 3 cities. And as you might be aware, many local governments work with climate through this covenant of mayors, which was a program by the European Commission trying to increase a bit of a movement amongst cities to move or to act on climate protection. And as part of this covenant of mayors, there was an instrument developed called the Sustainable Energy Action Plan, which then in the second version is now called the Sustainable Energy and Climate Action Plan. And these CCAPs, you see they've updated it in 2015 here. These CCAPs are basically somewhat of a standard format for municipalities to shape and plan their climate actions. And this was something that all 3 cities in the project work with. So this was for us then kind of the common denominator to see, okay, how can we now starting from these action plans, work with the tool. And if we go to the next slide, please. Yeah, here we see some of the focus actions or areas that the municipality of Calvia has chosen within its CCAP. So reducing CO2 emissions, of course, increasing energy efficiency. Here it's also directly addressed, which was helpful for the project context and for the tool. But also then, of course, increase the use of renewable energy sources. Yeah, developing a baseline, conducting assessments, risk assessments, and so on. But yeah, just to give you a bit of an impression, what type of or what level actions are thought of in these CCAPs. And then on the next slide, yeah, we went a bit deeper and looked at some more of the actions in the CCAP, mitigation measures and adaptation measures. Not all of it, of course, relates to energy efficiency. So also here again, you see the areas of action that play an important role for the municipality: energy efficiency, which was the entry door for MICAT, renewable energies. Here it sometimes already got tricky to work with because it's not all efficiency related. Same with mobility and transport, and then tourism, of course, also is it's not a category that worked within the tool directly. Where we had a lot of discussions to see kind of how can we make this tool actually work for the cities where energy efficiency is not directly a visible dimension. And then going to the next slide. We discussed with them, quite intensely all these measures and actions in the CCAP, and chose a handful of them to be tested in the MICATool. And yeah, here these were basically improving effectiveness and efficiency of lighting, replacing of public lighting, replacement of municipal vehicles powered by fuel with electric vehicles, developing of an urban mobility plan, and a few more. But so those were just like a handful of measures that in the end we took and tried to implement in the tool to see what can it actually tell us, and how useful is this tool already in its current version for cities, and what would be needed to improve it further. And just to give you on the next slide a bit more lively impression, this was how we worked. Just some images. With stakeholders from the municipality, but also from the regional government, with companies. It varied to the cities, but in Vitoria-Gasteiz we had quite a few private sector participants also. Here in Calvia we had mostly public sector, but from different levels: the island, the region, the city, also university. Who are involved basically all in the policy making of the island. And yeah, just some impressions here also. We were asked for feedback. So is the sequence of steps in the tool, for example, clear? We got mixed answers and had good discussions about that. We asked them, how do you rate the overall user experience? How easy is it to use in the end? And also then spend some time discussing, okay, so how much can this tool currently actually inform your policy making and help you in implementation of your CCAP? Because this ultimately would be the purpose of it. And summarizing these discussions on the next slide, I think we saw that across the 3 cities, language wasn't a big barrier, but there could always be some improvements because it's a very kind of expert level, sometimes technical language. And if you want people on the ground really to be able to work with it, if they're not an energy expert, that can be a barrier, and that's definitely something to pay attention to, which I think is important. Then the sequence of steps was fairly clear, I would say, but also here you need some level of expertise, and then depending also on those 2 points, the overall user experience varied quite strongly, let's say. I think those participants who were deeper already into the topic found it easier, whereas those that were further away found it more difficult, which is also not surprising. But all I think the 2 most strong recommendations that I can name here that we drew in the workshops was that the tool contains a lot of relevant information, but it's not always possible to directly take it and work with it. I mean, there were some technical points like the units were just too big, because if you compare things at the EU level, of course, the units are different than if you look at the local level. So these were some minor things that can be adapted quickly, but all in all, the understanding was expressed needs to be there in order to work with the outcomes of the tool vis-a-vis policymakers, for example. So here, this quote, "I need to understand how I get to this number," I think expresses that fairly well, because in the end, at the local level, city staff from the administration would need to be able to convince policymakers in the city council, for example, based on what this tool supports. So I think that's something definitely important to take with us for further development. And then a more capacity-wise and capability-wise challenge I think we found was that cities often don't have relevant data to start using the tool. So already the input data, as Wolfgang said, you need to have energy savings as the input data. So if that's not there, then you won't find the tool useful, of course. And this is something I think for the bigger policy debate also, where it's really interesting and relevant now to see if we want, from a multi-level governance perspective, cities to fulfill the role to really implement some of these European and national level policies, we also need to equip cities with the capacities and capabilities to do so. And that means, for example, you need a data management capacity. You need a dedicated staff that can track down and find and analyze and collect all this data, which will also be needed, not only for the sake of being able to work with such a tool, but also for the sake of monitoring and reporting on climate change adaptation and mitigation measures in general. And I think with what I mentioned in the beginning, this European Union's mission to have 100 smart and climate neutral cities, I think that is a very interesting undertaking, which also shows some of the gaps that we have. And data management and monitoring all these activities is one where this kind of becomes apparent. Yeah, solid data brings solid insights. I think that was the punchline, so to say, at the end of that debate. And if you want these solid insights, then there's some capacity building to be done. And with that, I think I conclude and